Hello, 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 hello. And I hope you had a good day. This is Home Care Queen TV, and I am your host, Muriel Melville. Now, let's recap from our last episode. So, we talked about getting the schooling taken care of, getting your license and certificate taken care of. We talked about getting the job and the interview process. And now we are going to talk about entering the workforce as a caregiver. Now, let me first say, and I said it before, the caregiving profession is a very needed, very demanding profession. However, it truly takes a special person to be a caregiver. And why do I say that? There is so much that goes on. If you work in a facility, there is so much that goes on. So you have to be able to major in the majors and not major in the minors. What do I mean by that? There were staff there before you. You're just entering. They've been there for a while. And I don't mean to laugh at this, but they are going to nitpick. They're going to be they're going to be watching you. Now, you have to be comfortable enough to know that this is the first place I'm working, but I have an idea of my job responsibilities. It was given to me. I have an I had the orientation. So I understand what I'm getting into. Clients can be resistant, combative, demanding, needy, and you have to be prepared that you're going to face all of these different situations. So, client one might be very understanding. He or she rings the bell. You had client two that you're in the middle of caring for. So, you finished with client two and you got to her, and it's a little, she think you took too much time. Don't let nerves overpower how you can manage this. You say to her, I am so sorry, or he, I am so sorry it took me so long. That was not my intention. I was with another person and I did my best to get here as fast as I can. And then you change the whole mood. How can I help you now? And you assist them, and you, while assisting, you just don't do the chore that the patient wants or the client wants. So if you're with an agency or you're in a facility, you're in the home with an agency, you're in the facility with a hospital or a nursing home. So you don't get the behavior continuing. The person is already upset. They feel like it took too long. So while you're doing the task, you could say, if lunch had just gone by, how was your lunch? You change the conversation while you are paying attention to the person. You find something positive to talk about. If you happen to see a family member, you said, I noticed you had a visitor today. and you lead now in a positive vein. So then, while doing the chore, the individual might or might not, but you still have to try. They might or they might not calm down. But for your job is to make sure you can get the anxiety of the individual down so that after you're finished with whatever their needs are, they don't have to ring the bell to call a supervisor or complain to the next provider that comes in the room. So, going into the workforce for the first time, or even if it's not the first time, but if this is this is a second job, you just got this new job, you have your experience, it is intimidating. It can be very, very, very stressful. So, how you take that in for yourself makes the difference in dealing with the individual. If you're in a facility, now the numbers I'm hearing, because I know a lot of caregivers and nursing assistant that works in various hospital, nursing home, rehab centers, and in the home. And I've been speaking to them recently. I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to mention this, but I will say it's alleged that a caregiver or a nursing assistant can have up to 15 patients for a shift. Now, in the home, it's different. You only have to concentrate on probably most common is one person, but if there's a husband and wife or a mother and a daughter, you only have to concentrate on one person and you're in a structured, closed environment versus the facilities. So, if this is true, this is difficult, especially if you're working in a skilled or rehab where the needs are so great. They're there because they broke their hip or their leg or some other reason. They're not able to move independently, so they're constantly needing your support to get the walker, get them out of bed. If they're a fall risk, the bell goes off every time they try to move. Caregiving is a wonderful profession, but when you're starting, it can be very, very daunting. And that's not to discourage everyone. I was looking at something on a YouTube channel where, and I can understand her frustration. I watched the video to its entirety. Someone sent it to me, and I watched it in its entirety because the person said, "What do you think of this?" She was just saying everybody that is in the caregiving and nursing assistant profession should quit. And that's her feeling overwhelmed, feeling like she has no recourse. But I can say this, it happens. However, we can try our best to prevent it if this is what our passion is. If this is something that we want to do, this is something that comes naturally for us. This is something that we say to ourselves, this is my job, this is what I choose, and I'm going to give it my best. I am not talking about if you are being abused or that. I'll get to that in another episode. What I'm saying, as a new, I would say inexperience, well, not inexperienced, let me say seasoned, because anywhere from 3 to whatever months is considered experience. But if you're seasoned in the profession, we're able to deal with those nuances a little better because we have gone through it. We have the t shirt to prove it, we have the scars, we have the laughter, we have the moments that we ourselves, just like the lady on the video, wanted to give up. But then you come up for air. This is why it's so important to know how to manage your time. So if you have a patient or a client, because in the hospital, they're called patients, the hospitals, the facilities, they're called patients, at home, they're called clients. And if you have a client or let's talk about a patient first. You're in a facility and you have a patient that you're on your way to take them to the bathroom, or you're giving them a shower, or you're assisting them with their meals, and somebody comes in and say, could you get this for me? Now you have to know that what your priority is. If your neighbor that is working in the next room say, could you get me a gloves while you're in there? And you know that you can't leave your patient, you just kindly said to the person, I'm feeding, be specific. I'm feeding her right now, and she's a difficult eater, so I don't want to leave her. I'm sorry, but I can't do it right now. And you say it in a manner hoping that they'll accept it, that you really want to help, but you can't leave. So, knowing how to manage your time and decide what is an emergency, that is so, so, so important. If a patient falls and someone is calling, I need a nurse, you can't leave well, you should not leave the person that's on the floor to go and ring the person's bell for a nurse. You can yell, because it's accepted sometimes, not all the times. You can just yell to the person, I am dealing with an emergency. I'll get someone right away for you as soon as I'm finished. Entering the workplace for the first time, there is so much unexpected situations that happens that are not need based. And when I said need based, it's not about the client, it's about someone else wanting help that they can take the time and do it for themselves. And this is a part of the new kid on the block syndrome. You know, I have once said to a caregiver, did you have a day one before you came on this job? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, this is my first experience in this building. I have been working in this profession for a while, but it's my first experience in this building. But I'm also very experienced because of the constant just badgering you for this and badgering for knowing that you have the same amount of patience they do. So you don't have to fight with them. You don't have to bicker with them. You just ask them for grace. And grace is not only used in the religious arena, it's also used in our everyday life. Just say the same experience that you have, I hope it was a pleasant one. Could you give it to me? Because they're going to try you. They're going to try you as the new kid on the block. And you have to be so confident that you don't let it get to you. And let me tell you something. Let me get a little transparent here. I can be hypersensitive. I can be hypersensitive. More so in the last couple of years because of my experience and what I've been through in life. But when I work, I literally tell myself, this too shall pass. And I start to practice it in my life. Am I there yet? No. Because when you've been through certain life experiences that really, really breaks your spirit and you have to work, especially in the caring environment, have to be constantly aware of yourself and your boundaries. So sometimes the way I would snap at the family or snap at one of my friends, sometimes on the job I have to work a little harder. Not saying I'm right. I'm just showing you how humanness and life experience and what we go through can influence the job. So I'm not trying to justify it, but sometimes we can feel comfortable with our friends and our family. I have had family members say to me, "Why are you yelling at me?" I've had friends say to me, "It's okay." So knowing how to deal with those issues, your personal issues, will help on the job. I've had times when I was a new staff where I took a husa moment. I go in the bathroom, I count to 10, I do what I do to calm me down, and then I start again. Because there's one thing, and I have told other folks that I've worked with over and over everywhere I go. If you need to go and take a personal break, I call it a bathroom break, nobody can tell you you can't. You don't have to spend 10 hours in there. There are people that smoke on the job and they'll just come up and say, I'm going to take a smoke break. So, what I do when it gets overwhelming for me, when I first started, I would take my coffee break or my smoke break in the bathroom. I'm not smoking. I'm not drinking coffee. Well, you do, well, you can drink coffee in the nurse's station, pardon me. But my smoke break is my overwhelm. When I feel overwhelmed, when I feel that this is not going right. This is my fourth patient and it's too much. I just ask the person that's working with me, I'm going to take a personal break. Everybody that I've worked with in facilities knows that I use that as bathroom because I tell them. And I just go in there really quick and I gather my thoughts together and I remind myself that this is what I choose to do. This is what I want to do. I have other avenues that I can work, and but this is what I choose to do. So, in developing your own coping mechanism and understanding the issues that you go through on a daily basis that can affect how you work with your coworkers and your client is so important. Needing support on the job as a new person, it's given to you because every facility gives you someone to work with for the first couple of days or probably a week or more. Facilities differ. So I'm not saying that this is a rule for everybody that works in a facility or everybody that works in an agency. Each facility, each company decides how they bring someone on board. I've heard that you're on the job, you're giving your clients, and there's nobody. It happens. It happens. And here is another nugget that I have learned and I've used and continue to use. If you have, which you have a nurse that working on your block. Say your block is room 213 to room 218. You have a nurse that works with you. You can go to her and you can say to her, how do I do this? Or I'm having a difficult time with him. And the nurse will take the time, if she has it, because she also has a lot of patients. She has to give meds, she has to do documentation, she has to listen to you, she has to solve problems. So I'm not saying to go to them for everything, but I'm saying develop a relationship with the nurse that's working on the same block or section that you're working. You know, and I'm sure other caregivers and nursing assistant might have experienced it. I have had nurses that I worked with that when they come on shift, I do a happy dance. I go, oh, Jan is here. Cheryl is here. I am going to be fine today. It doesn't matter what comes my way. I'm going to get through it because here is my support nurses. And then have had nurses that I just do my job. I'm civil. I take care of my patients. I make sure they have no complaints. But that's just the way it is. And I'm sure, caregivers, if you're listening to me, I know you have experienced this. Everyone has that special nurse that when they work, the team is solidified. The team is we're gonna be okay. Yes, I am overworked. Yes, I'm overwhelmed. Yes, I'm new to the job. But guess what? I love working with this nurse because she supports me. And I'm gonna ask you experienced nurses, nursing assistant, and caregivers that have been on the job for a very long time, or even if you're not on the job, you've been in the profession for a while, you're seasoned. I want you to come in the palace, come a little closer, pull up your chairs, come a little closer. Let's talk a little bit. I'm asking you to have mercy. Have mercy on the person that's coming in. I'm asking you to remember the difficulties you might have had your first month. And remember how that felt. Remember how it felt. It feels the same way to the person that you are constantly badgering. It might not seem like badgering, but if the person feels it, it is. So, are you guys close enough? Are you hearing me? You did not get where you are without your stripes and your aches and your pains and your hurt and your disappointments. You didn't get there without that. Give them the chance to learn the job, learn what works for Mr. X, learn what works for their nurses, how their nurses wants them to report issues. Let them learn. And while they're learning, support them. Support them. Don't look for every little thing to complain about. That is one of the hardest part of caregiving working in a facility. And even in the home, if you have a 24-hour shift and you work 7 p.m. and the other person comes on at 7 a.m., and you find everything that went wrong when you got there at 7. Yes, we are supposed to do our work, but sometimes you can't do it without a mistake. Sometimes you can't do it without forgetting to empty this and put away that, because the day was such a difficult day. It was such a difficult day that I forgot to put the pen back in the drawer. And that's simplifying it. I'm not talking about things that will hurt the patient, that will come against the agency or come against the hospital facility or wherever you work, or even if you're private. I'm not talking about forgetting to give. Well, in the facilities, the nurse gives the medication. But I'm not talking about in the home forgetting to give the medication or forgetting to take the blood pressure. I'm not talking about because it's so needed for the next medication. I'm not talking about those issues. I'm talking about you walk into the room and you go in the bathroom, which is a common area for errors, and the person bathe the client at or the patient at 5 o'clock. So you bathe them at 5 o'clock in the facility, and you forgot to put the linens in the hamper. Things like these happen. Now, if it's an habitual thing, it's a different story. I'm talking about your new caregiver because I'll get into more in the seasoned caregivers. I'm talking about your new person working with you. Errors are going to be made because they're nervous. They want to make, they're so focused on doing everything for the client or the patient that these little things they forget. Pick the sheet up and put it in the laundry. You don't have to call a supervisor for that. Pick the sheet up and put it in the laundry. Pick the towel up and put it in the laundry. Now, if this becomes a pattern, day two, it happened again. Then you take your coworker because that's what the person is. You both are working for the same company, the same agency. You take the individual one side and you say to them, I know from what the report you gave me that you had a very difficult day today. But I would like you to pay a little more attention when you bathe or when you dress. Don't leave the depends, don't leave the whatever you use just laying around. And then you can tell the person close to the end of the shift, just double check everything because you know they're doing good with the patient or the client because you see the person's comfortable, the report is good, but they're leaving little things around. So you take them one side and you said, here's what I do. Share your experience, share how you manage those things before, like 10 minutes to 7. I know my clients are okay. Everybody is waiting for the nurse for their night meds. Everything I have to do is taken care of. Go through every room that you have now and look for these little things. Make sure the bathroom, all the supplies you use are put away. Housekeeping doesn't work 24 hours, we do. So, therefore, there are things that we have to do. Make sure the garbage is not overflowing. And you talk to the person in kindness, and 9 times out of 10, they correct the behavior. Because again, they're so preoccupied in doing the task on the sheet that we all get, or on the iPad or the computer, whatever you use, they are so task oriented that they are missing the little things. And here's another nugget. You see, once you do it right, it becomes now a norm. If you go and tell everybody that works on the shift, you know the new girl, she left a towel in the bathroom. It breaks down the relationship. And in some cases, it never mends. It never mends because instead of doing what I suggested before, going to the person and sharing how you manage these things as a new person, you go and you tell everybody in the lunchroom. So when she goes in the lunchroom, everybody's looking at her or he. Everybody, men don't have such a hard time though. I must say this. Men, I don't know what it is in the nursing assistant and caregiving industry. The men, they get away with so much of the little tasks that they don't do. But we nitpick on our women, our own, so much. And I believe there's no statistic, there's nothing written down in a book. Most of what I'm sharing is my experience and the questions that other caregivers ask me. And in service, I hear the complaints from other people that I work with. So these are experiences I'm sharing. And most of the time, when a male makes a mistake, and granted, I'm not talking about a mistake that's going to jeopardize the facility or the agency or you as the private caregiver work. I'm talking about housekeeping, let's call it that way. Housekeeping tasks that we all have to do in this profession. They get away with it. And you know what I've heard women say? He's a man. You know better. He got a wife. She does everything. Why can't we give the same grace to our counterparts? Why can't we say, oh, she has a husband, she's used to doing everything, she's overwhelmed, she's tired? Why can't we do that? But no, we come at each other so hard. And I believe, and again, this is not a survey, this is not documented, this is my belief. I believe that the reason why the caregiving industry, apart from salary, now salary is a whole different story, because I'm of the belief that if an employer offer me 5 cents an hour and I know I'm worth 10, I am asking for 10 or close to 10, but I'm not going to accept a job that I know cannot pay my bills. So if this is what you pay, I am not the person for your building. And I have done that throughout my life. Because if you wait, and I know I'm going off a little bit, but if you wait and take the next interview, you just might get the salary you deserve. But too often, because the need is so great to get a job, we don't trust and said, I am experienced enough and this is the salary I want. Okay, so now let's get back to it. So I'm saying, allow the new person on the block to gain the confidence that you have after working there for a while. If you had a bad experience, as I said before, break the cycle. Decide that I don't want another person to feel the way I felt when I came here. And if everybody does that, as I started to say before, I believe that one of the reasons why the need, besides salary, one of the reasons why the need is so great, especially in the city that I live, there is so much work here, is because a part of it, not all of it now, a part of it could be the way we treat each other on the job. I have never witnessed a nurse arguing or fussing with another nurse publicly. I think I experienced it in the 80s when I just started to do nursing assistant work before I went to college. That was my first experience of seeing it. But they're not saints. They have disagreements with each other, but they have learned how to deal with it behind closed doors. You ever notice sometimes they're locked in the medication room and you just see the finger doing this, or you see them doing that? Because something went wrong. And either the person going off duty or coming on duty realize that this is not good. And they solve it. They solve it. And again, I'm not talking about issues that can jeopardize patients. I'm talking about housekeeping issues, the things that we have to do around the perimeters to end our shifts. Nurses have issues too, but you rarely see them arguing the way or bickering or going against each other the way you see nursing assistant and caregiver does. And I'm imploring you, stop it. Stop it. The same way you need a paycheck, the person that just came on as a new candidate or newbie on the block, they're there for their paycheck too. They're there for their paycheck too. And when you work as a cohesive group, the work tends to be lighter. So if you have a patient that is difficult to lift, and you develop a good working relationship with the aides that work on your block, and you call her and you say, do you have a minute? And she said, sure, give me a few seconds, I'll be there. And she comes and you say, could you help me lift her? And then when she needs the help, you make yourself available when you can to be there for her. That is called teamwork. Teamwork is not gossiping. Teamwork is not fighting each other down. Teamwork is being there for each other. The person know she has my back, because it depends on what area of the facility you work in. There will be a combative patient. So if you're not getting along with the folk that is working with you, when you are in danger, they're going to say they didn't see it. I have heard it. I didn't see it. I was documenting, or oh yes, I walked down the block, but I was making a note in my scratch paper to put in the computer. Now in the home, in the home, in the home, in the home, the same applies. The person is not there in the days with you for the 12-hour shift like the facility. But in the home, whether you're agency or you're private, whenever you find a need to assist the person, assist them, assist them, assist them, especially in the home. When a person does a 12-hour shift in the home, it's quite different from in a facility or in a rehab, which is a facility also. But in the home, when you have a 12-hour shift to do, if you're not good at time management and prioritizing, and I said in another episode earlier on, knowing how to get your client to feel safe when they're anxious or when they're needy is so important. So if you have to make breakfast, you got them out of bed, got them dressed for the day, or if the person can get themselves dressed for the day, you assist them down to the living room or wherever they're comfortable staying until breakfast is ready, and you're making breakfast and they're calling you that the remote is not working. The remote is not, and you have eggs on. You have eggs on. Coffee, you can let it go, but you have eggs doing. You turn off the stove and you take the pot off the stove and you rush and you do the remote and you say to the person, I'm doing your breakfast. So if it doesn't work again, when I come with breakfast, I'll make it work. Is that okay? Just let me finish your breakfast because I want you to eat on time. So you find ways to comfort them. You find ways so you can go on doing the other part of the chore while they're doing breakfast. If you don't have to feed the person, if the person is not a choke risk, you can do something else. Whether you're in the home or the facility, if it's a facility, you just gave them a shower. If it's the home, you probably just gave a shower also. You say to the person, I am going to the bathroom to clean up. I will be right here, or if you need me, call me. So the communication, that is with the person who can understand you. And as I said, if you're not feeding or the person doesn't have a need base that you have to be with them during breakfast, but take that time while they're having breakfast. Make sure you've put the TV on the channel they like to watch while they have their breakfast, and then you move on to the next chore. So I hope I have opened an avenue for those that are experienced to be more patient with the person that's just coming on in your facility or just coming on to work with you in the home. This platform was born out of my passion for caregiving. And the reason why I chose this is because I know caregivers, nursing assistant, doesn't matter what area you work, whether it's facility, agency, or privately in the home or with an agency, there's a need for you to feel supported. So this is your safe space that if you have challenges or if you have things that you want to talk about, you don't have to identify yourself. You don't have to name the facility that you work. And if it's at all possible and you can disguise your voice a little, I'm going to be having the next few episodes because dealing with caregiver on the job, it's difficult. So I'm going to have where you could call in, you could talk to me about your issue, and we'll address it right there. Or if you don't call in, use the comments. Send me your comments, and I will address them for you. I hope that these episodes over the last few weeks has been helping families to decide how they want to work when it comes on to getting someone to assist in the home. I am hoping that you have gained some perspective on how to become a caregiver and use your resources, your community resources, your friends, and how to get you to where you want to be as a caregiver and a nursing assistant. And I'm also hoping that I've created an avenue this evening or morning or whenever you're watching this, that you can feel encouraged because it gets better. Once you get the skill and the added years of experience, you get to choose whether you want to work in a facility, you want to work for an agency, you want to work privately, according to how your family structure is made up. And even if you decide to stay in a facility or an agency, you will have had a little more tool and a little more support to keep going and be patient with one another. And remember, caregiving is a good service. Families no longer want their loved ones. Some families no longer want their loved ones in institutions. They want them home in their comfortable beds and their space. And they need you. They need you. So I hope I've encouraged someone today. This has been Home Care TV, and I am your host, Muriel Melville. Don't forget, while you're watching, like, share, subscribe. And I will never stop saying, for those of you who continues to support and continues to share, I appreciate you. I need you. And I appreciate you because I know that there's so many other things you could be doing. And you took the time out to support me. And I thank you. Good night.